What's up, guys? This week we're going to be focusing on a little bit different of a truck than our normal third gen content. Now behind me you see we have this second gen, and we've got a pretty kind of unique, weird problem that I haven't really seen before. And let me show you. Okay guys, so before we get started working on this thing, I should probably tell you guys a little bit of a backstory on this truck. So this was actually my first diesel truck in high school, and around a little over a year ago I ended up selling this truck to my dad. Now he needed a truck at the time, you know, and I was looking to sell a truck, so he liked this truck a lot, so I just went ahead and sold it to him, and that's when I bought the third gen over there and got that truck. Now this truck's kind of a third vehicle for him now. He doesn't really drive it too much, and we're going to be doing some stuff on it today, getting it kind of, you know, back to where it was. But the first problem that needs to be addressed on this thing is this right here. Now we have the steering column plastic, you know, cover and stuff already off this thing, and as you can see right here, this whole steering wheel actually moves in and out. Now it's weird, you know, when it's all the way in, there's no really side-to-side movement, but when you pull it out, I mean, you got a lot of play, and it's kind of weird because it's not side-to-side play in the steering. It's almost like there's a nut loose or something. So of course we've got to take this airbag off, go into it, but you know, first and foremost, we got to disconnect those batteries and wait about, I'd say, 30 minutes just to be safe. We don't want any airbags going off in this thing. Okay guys, so now that the batteries have been disconnected for a little while and we've let all the charge out of this thing, you know, that might still be in there, I think it's pretty safe to go ahead and start taking this airbag off. Now you're going to have 2 bolts on each side from what I can see, and that's about an 8mm. So just like that, we got the airbag all out of this thing. Now I was kind of looking and hoping it was just this bolt or this nut right here that was loose, but as you guys can see, it doesn't really look like it's the case. I'm probably going to end up taking this steering wheel off and digging a little deeper into it and see what we can find. We do have a bearing for this thing, for the upper part here. I'm not sure if that's it or not, but like I said, just probably needs to be taken off and looked at a little bit harder. So we got that nut off as you saw, but we're still having trouble getting the steering wheel off. It's pretty seized on there. So we're going to be using a puller, and right now we're just getting some bolts that'll fit up to it, and you're going to see us pull this thing off. What's up guys, welcome back. So actually it's the next day. We lost daylight yesterday, but we're actually going a step farther with this steering column. We're actually going to go ahead and take off all this, which is with the ignition and where the turn signal mounts, just so we can get a deeper look in there and maybe clean some things up. But we did get that bearing out. It was pretty nasty, and there was some Teflon on the back of it that seemed to be wore down, but like I said, it's still kind of loose, and we're just going to go a little bit deeper and see what we find. Okay guys, so we went ahead and took this key module out and cleaned it up. We also, while we were at it, went ahead and cleaned up this right here. This is the little light up ring. You know, it was pretty nasty, had a lot of dust and grime over the years, all packed in there. But we got that clean, so it should be nice and bright now. And then the only thing left to do now is to go ahead and start putting our new bearing in, which can actually be done right here inside since we already have this out and it goes just in there. So the way our old one came out, you've got this kind of nylon plastic side on the back, which wasn't even there on our old one. And you've got the metal ring on the outside. You want to make sure this metal ring is on the outside so the plastic side goes down into this. Okay guys, so just like that, we got it pressed in using a socket and we're ready to reinstall this. So we got our ignition module back in. I've already got the bearing pre-seated in there or set in there, as you can see. I definitely recommend taking this off and doing it. I mean, trying to bang that bearing in, you know, while it's on the truck would probably be a lot harder. But next up is this little, I guess you'd call it a bushing or whatever, right here. This will end up going over it just like that, and then you'll have that snap ring in front of that. Okay guys, so we got that snap ring in and we got that bushing in. Put a little grease on it and it already feels a lot tighter than the old one. So fingers crossed this is our fix to our problem. This is where we're at on this. We've got it tightened, we torqued this up to the amount of torque spec that it's supposed to be, but I don't know if you can see that on camera, but we still have a little bit of play going on as far as up and down, and then when you pull it out, you know, you can move it side to side. It's not as bad as it was. That bearing definitely needed to be replaced, but it's definitely not the solution to our problem. So the next thing we're gonna have to do is go under the hood to see what we got. I don't know how much of that you can see, but that's actually the steering shaft going through the firewall. Now, I've done a little research, and I think from the factory, there's supposed to be kind of like a spring retainer, like it's a spring and it's supposed to keep pressure on it, and it's supposed to retain the joint from moving back and forth. Now this one doesn't have it, and it's also got like a weird clip or like a tie wrap thing on it, and it looks like a relatively new bushing. So with some further investigation, I've found that when these wear out, these bushings, it's common. You go back and you replace them and you get rid of the spring, which I think is a mistake, and you use like a tie wrap or some type of plastic retainer on the shaft to keep it from sliding back and forth. Now as you can see, that's kind of slid down, and it's really not helping anything. It's moving back and forth, and I think that's what probably killed our last bearing up there in the steering column. So what we're gonna have to do is find some type of ingenuitive aftermarket way of securing that and keeping it from moving back and forth. I'm not sure how much of that you can see, but we're actually taking off the U-joint part of the axle shaft now, or the steering shaft now, to get to it, to measure it, and to see what we can find to get on there. So we got that shaft slid down, we got the bolt out and then slid it down, but we actually got pretty lucky because usually these shafts are all rusted up and they're seized up and they never want to slide down, but this one luckily slid right down, and we went in and measured it over here with our calipers, and our measurements come out to just about a little over an inch. So now what we're going to actually do is go to a hardware store or a tractor supply store and see if we can't find something that's a little bit better than that plastic retaining clip to keep it on. This is actually the plastic retaining clip that was on there. This is not factory. Factory usually is like a whole big spring kind of that goes around it, and it keeps like a constant pressure on it. That's what I've seen at least from other trucks. So this is kind of a one telltale sign that this truck has had an aftermarket bushing put into it, which we kind of already knew anyway because the previous owner told us he did that. But yeah, this is kind of what they give you in that kit, and this is just not enough to keep that shaft from, you know, sliding up and down. Like I said, the original design was a spring, which you have to remove to put the new bushing in, which I'd prefer to keep, but you know, we didn't do it, so you know, can't really control that. Okay guys, so when we went to the tractor supply store, this is what we came up with. We got an 1 1/8" collar right here, so we're gonna put this on there to keep everything down to replace that cheesy plastic one we had right here. So that's what's gonna be replacing that. And then also we're gonna put some grease in there and these 2 washers. Now we were wanting to go with a bearing setup, but we really couldn't find one that would work, just because, you know, if you tighten down the bearing on the other side with, say, a collar, it's gonna basically be the same as having a washer, so that wouldn't work. So that's what we're gonna do. And then also, for an extra measure, just because this thing vibrates so much, we're gonna put a little blue Loctite on this set screw just to keep everything together and coming apart. Okay guys, so there it is. It's all on right now. We got everything tightened up. Got the slip joint back on, which, like I said, ours was not rusted or seized up, which allowed us to take it off pretty easily, which is an important thing to consider. But yep, it's all on. Everything's greased. Like I said, it's not the bearing you wanted to go with, but this has already made a huge difference, so let me show you that. Look at that, guys. Look how solid that is. I mean, I'm trying to pull the steering wheel out, and it's not coming out at all now. But with all that, this thing was a huge success in my eyes, along with replacing that upper bearing, because if you remember, some of that nylon was worn off, or that plastic on the back, I guess. I'm not sure exactly what it was made of. This isn't a too common issue I haven't really read much about, but if you guys have any issues with not steer and play, but the actual steering wheel, like going in and out and moving all about, that's definitely something you might want to check on. Okay guys, so that's going to be a wrap on this video. We went ahead and put all our trim pieces back in and then got some nice protected shine on it, so it's looking brand new again. One thing you did see me do is I dropped the whole steering column, because if not, to put that back piece of plastic back in, I would have had to take this bezel off. And if you guys know anything about these 2nd gen trucks, you really don't want to mess with these dashes any more than you have to. So with all that said, this baby is nice and solid now, and catch us on the next one. Like, subscribe, comment.